right, now the fun part. Allison is a copywriter, messaging strategist, and founder of Morning Hour Co., where she helps creatives and mission-driven brands clarify their voice and write copy that sounds like them, clear, compelling, and full of heart. She's partnered with everyone from fast-growing startups to bold nonprofits, but her favorite work? Helping people revive the stories they're telling so their message finally feels like home. Come on up.
Okay, it's my first time working with a podium. This is fun. Okay, so today we're talking about reviving your story. And in the spirit of that, I wanted to start off with a story. 6 years ago, I lost my voice, which is wild because now I help people find theirs. I was in my early days part of some high level marketing copywriting masterminds, and it was just full of bros. Like, so different from Creative Mornings. Imagine a room full of, like Gary V's and Grant Cardones and Dave Ramsey. And if you don't know who any of those guys are, like, amazing, great. Keep it that way. At the time, I thought I had to be part of these circles to succeed. As a daughter of immigrants, adapting just came so natural to me, and I got really good at speaking their language. My content was really pushy, it was loud and it was aggressive, and it was so not me. And as a result, I started attracting the wrong people. I fell out of love of copywriting. I didn't want to create anymore. And I stopped showing up for my business because my brand just didn't feel like me. And above all of that, I was just tired of being in these spaces where I couldn't be myself. I wasn't safe to be myself and really show the parts of me that were rooted in my heritage, my femininity, the things that made me me. And I just had to blend in and be the strong, perfect person. And I couldn't connect to the parts of me that were softer, more gentle, more compassionate, and more graceful. And I didn't feel supported. Like, isn't that the point of community and circles in the first place? So it wasn't until I got clear on my values and why I started my business in the first place did everything start to shift. My brand, my voice, my impact, it all evolved. But that's when I realized that the story that I had been telling, it wasn't mine. It was a borrowed voice that I thought I needed in order to be successful, and it no longer fit me anymore. So I had adapted to survive, but now I was ready for a revival. And I know I'm not alone. There are so many creatives and entrepreneurs I work with, and maybe some of you here have felt it too, or maybe you're even feeling it right now. By the way, hi, I'm Allison Carpio. I'm a copywriting, messaging, and brand strategist and founder at Morning Hour Co. And I help impact-driven brands tell powerful stories that move people into action. And if you've ever found yourself sounding like someone that just doesn't feel like you or you're feeling misaligned with your voice, just know that you're all not alone because we've all been there, just caught up in a version of our story that doesn't feel like us. And maybe it was a message that you built your brand on, or maybe it's the introduction you give at events or meetings. Maybe it's the role you keep playing at work that you're just ready to outgrow. But something might feel off. Like maybe you're cringing at old content, or you don't feel connected to your voice, or you're just attracting opportunities that just don't feel aligned with you. But still, changing it feels very terrifying because that old story got you here. It was your survival, it was your strategy, and maybe it was even your success. But if you're feeling the pull to evolve that story, listen to that and trust that. Because revival is about choosing the version of your story that feels the most true to you right now. One that reflects your voice, your values, your vision, and your big why. Because when you revive your story, you also revive your impact. But here's the good news. You're not stuck, you're not broken or behind. You're just ready for a new story. One that reflects who you are right now and not just who you had to be before. Because revival isn't always loud or flashy. Sometimes it's quiet, and sometimes it's a whisper. And reclaiming your narrative just means returning to the version of your voice that feels the most true and building from there. It doesn't have to be polished or the most perfect. It just has to be the most aligned. So I had to go through my own revival too. And on the left here is my old website. You could see here, like the tone was just kind of aggressive. There's some all caps going on. And at the time, the and the short sentences and everything. And at the time, in those copy bro circles, like I learned that I had to be confident and have a lot of conviction, which is what I did. But the more I got clear on my values, like one of them being design, you can kind of see that my brand went through a glow up. I got more clear on why I started in the first place. I want to help those impact driven brands bring more impact into the world. My brand to feel, I wanted to be proud of the brand that I was promoting. And once I left those copy bro circles and went through my own little glow up, everything kind of shifted. Like I even renamed my brand from just Allison Carpio to Morning Hour Co. because morning's like this magic time for me where I feel so clear and energized and inspired. Everything shifted. I started attracting the right people. I created services and content that I was excited to promote. I launched a YouTube channel. Like I just stopped trying to be the loudest and I just, was focused on being me and expressing my truth. And that's when I helped people start sounding like them. I was like, oh, this is actually something that a lot of people need help with. So that's the kind of the beauty of that revival and that realigning in your big message and your vision and your why. But revival isn't just personal. That was my brand, but I've also worked with this amazing organization. It's called Race for Good, and they help nonprofit leaders with fundraising and capacity strengthening so that they can create more impact. And when we started working together, their message, it was still pretty powerful, but it was only catered towards the nonprofit leaders. But when we kind of took a step back and we thought, okay, what's the story and who are we telling it to? We realized it was a little incomplete. There's also this group of people in the audience called funders, and the funders, they give the nonprofits funds, but we also noticed, okay, these funders are putting 5, 10, 15, 20 nonprofit leaders in our programs, but we didn't have any messaging for them. So when we asked ourselves, okay, what is it that they really want? They don't just want to support a good cause, but they also want to know that they're investing in future ready nonprofits, ones that were going to scale and ones that were going to be around in a couple years. They didn't want to just give these nonprofits money and then they're just gone the next year. Because, running nonprofits is really hard and survival rates quite low, especially, during times like this. So we shift our messaging from, hey, we help nonprofit leaders and here's how we do it to we help nonprofits become future ready and create lasting impact through fundraising. And that really shifted and that really resonated with the funders because it was rooted in that truth and that vision. So you can kind of see that revival isn't just, it goes beyond yourself sometimes. It's also the people that you want to attract and connect with. So those were some of the revivals that were in my life. And now I kind of want to turn it on to you. How do you know when your story is no longer serving you? Sometimes the signs are really obvious, but sometimes they're kind of a whisper. So let's talk about those signs. So hopefully you can leave with some clarity. Okay, the first one, you no longer enjoy creating, it feels like a chore. So think of it like working out. I'm not talking about the days where you're like, I don't really feel like it. I'd rather be on my couch watching Netflix. Or I'd rather take a nap. That's totally normal. We all do it. And sometimes we got to push through it, sometimes we don't. But I'm talking like you just straight up like don't feel inspired like at all ever, and sometimes your body kind of tells you to, and sometimes napping is like your body actually needs it, and sometimes it's kind of a form of telling you like I don't want to do this, and there's might be a deeper meaning there. Like I remember I this was probably back in my bro days. I was doing these high intensity boot camp classes, and after boot camp classes I felt so depleted. My body was pumping cortisol, my hormones were all messed up. And, I just didn't want to go anymore. And I thought, why don't I want to do this? But it turns out it's not that I didn't want to exercise at all. I just didn't want to go to boot camp. Maybe I wanted to go to Pilates or do some strength training classes. I just didn't want to do like 100 burpees in 15 minutes. And that's totally okay. So that's the first sign. Another one is when you introduce yourself, something kind of feels off. Maybe it feels robotic or over rehearsed, or maybe you're kind of tripping over your words, but something just doesn't kind of feel right. And we all kind of don't love talking about ourselves sometimes, but it's a little different when, again, your body's telling you something like, this is just not resonating. And you kind of hear it in your voice sometimes. Third sign is kind of a culmination of the two. You've stopped showing up in circles, on social, in communities, and even on your own work. So when you don't enjoy creating, you're not going to show up on social. If you don't enjoy introducing yourself and you don't feel aligned there, you might not come to events, or it'll at least feel like a slog. And you won't even show up in your own work if you don't enjoy the work anymore. A couple of other signs. So you cringe at your website, LinkedIn, Instagram bio. We all do it. And you cringe at anything you've created currently. So I'm not talking about the thing you made 5, 10 years ago where you're like, my POV's changed a little bit or I've evolved since then. I'm talking about like really recently, consistently. You're kind of like, ooh, something doesn't feel right there. It's just not a reflection of who I am. So kind of listen to those cringes. Sometimes those cringes are just, us being nervous and us, it's not always natural to promote ourselves, but sometimes it's something a little bit deeper. Your messaging no longer reflects what you care about. Has anyone watched Chef's Table on Netflix? Yeah, love that okay, so if you're not aware about what Chef's Table is, they follow around, like, some world-renowned chefs, like, all over the world. They, go into their story, like, why they started in the first place, like, who inspired them, how they source ingredients from the Andes Mountain, and the great-grandmother that their recipe was handed down to, so that when you go to the restaurants, it just tastes so damn good, and I know because 'cause I've been to about 4 of them. It was worth every dollar of that $300 meal, I can tell you for sure. So the opposite's kind of true too. If you eat somewhere and the chef kind of slaps together some food and some ingredients and there's like, here's your damn food, you're going to notice that too. And it's the same thing with your message. When it's something you don't care about, it's not something that really lights you up, you can feel it and other people can feel it too. And then finally, this one's a bit bigger. If you're clear with your values, you might know what misalignment is. But if you're not really sure what your values are, I found often that when I feel any kind of guilt or anything, that means that I'm misaligned with my values in some kind of way. It's not that I did a bad thing, it's just something's not aligned there. But, something kind of feels off, and it could be that misalignment with your values. And then maybe you feel jealous of people who have more clarity, even if you're just as talented. So I had this friend, and she was just unapologetically herself. She was unapologetically feminine, and she just, was in these spaces that were so damn supportive. And it's not that I wanted to do what she did, it's just that I was kind of jealous that she was out here being her own self and being accepted for it. And that kind of told me like, oh, something is kind of off for me. And, it just helped me start that revival. So if you've outgrown your old story, the new one's already quietly forming. And it shows up in moments of joy, in energy, and curiosity. Because revival isn't always about reinventing yourself, it's about remembering yourself. The truest stories don't come from pressure. They come from what lights you up. So start with joy. And a couple of ways I like to uncover that is I ask myself, like, what could I talk about endlessly, even if no one was paying me? If didn't give a damn what anyone said or what anyone thought, what would I be saying? What am I no longer willing to be quiet about? And what projects or people make me feel alive? What is life giving? Because we're not doing this just because, right? We do this because we want fulfillment, we want joy, and we want to express ourselves. So you don't need to have all the answers right now. Just keep these questions close because they're your compass. But here's what I've seen in myself, in my clients, and in people I admire the most. When your story reflects who you are, creativity feels easeful. You stop trying to prove your worth and instead you express your truth. Oops. You stop attracting misaligned clients and you connect with people, the right people, your people. You show up more, you create more, you get back in the flow, you feel inspired, and you enjoy creating again, not because of the outcome, but just because of how it feels. And you feel proud of your work and you find your voice and then you use it with confidence. Everything is flowing and we want that overflow. We want to feel like everything is flowing with so much ease and joy. So before we close, I want to give you a moment to reflect, not with pressure or a checklist, but just with some honesty. Because every revival starts with release. So ask yourself gently, what part of your story are you ready to let go? It might be a version of your brand, or a belief you've been carrying, or a role that you've been playing. Just name it. You don't have to fix it today. All you have to do is see it. Many of us have adapted to survive, to succeed, and to be accepted. But that version of your story was never meant to be permanent. Revival is an invitation back to your truth, back to alignment, and back to yourself. And from there, impact becomes inevitable. So today, I hope you don't leave just with insight or with clarity, but with permission. Permission to let go, to speak from your core, and to tell the version of your story that feels the most true to you today. Because adaptation is a survival skill, but revival is a return to yourself. Thank you.